Welcome to Waywut, your weekly verbal double take. This is a rabbit hole podcast where a couple of old guys do moderate to shallow dives into various topics, ranging from true crime, paranormal, sports, pop culture, or anything else that we find interesting. We drop episodes every Tuesday and on Fridays if we feel like it. You can follow us on Facebook, X, and TikTok. We appreciate you joining us. And now that we got all this self-promotion stuff out of the way, here we go. Hello, welcome to another episode of Waywut. Bitch, don't say shit right before we record. My name is Daryl, and this is my episode that somebody's already trying to derail. And here I am with the hero of the bloody battle of Heartland in the Third Postal War. He is the recipient of the sacred gold-plated chain for bravery and the purple panties of peace. Jason.
I wear them proudly. Both of them.
Good. You should. You're a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of you and your postal worker, I'd like to start things off today with a bit of a conflict rant.
Uh-oh.
I like guns. I mean, surprise, I'm a guy into Texan, so of course I like guns. It's just, we're born that way. Despite what some of you outside of Texas might think, we don't walk around with guns on our hips and shoot them in the air every time we get excited. You know, it's like, woo, 2-for-1 Lunchables. Yeah, pow, pow, pow. You know, that's not how that works.
I do practice my draw, though, in the mirror a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I bought that gun belt and that replica 6-shooter while I was in Tombstone. Twirl my gun and holster it.
I'm not the only one.
No.
See, Ashley, I'm not the only one.
In Texas, we have open carry laws when it comes to guns, and you can still get a concealed handgun license. The reason they still do both is with a concealed handgun license, you get some added protections, and it shows that you've been educated and all that. So when you inevitably go to court for shooting somebody, because even if they break in your house, you got to go to court for shooting somebody. It helps with your defense. And I own a few handguns, and yet it still manages to surprise people that I have zero desire to carry a gun. Like none. I like my replica one. I walked around with that on my hip. I was in Tombstone because, it wasn't a real gun.
Why not?
Well, because I don't want to. I just don't. I mean, I enjoy shooting guns, and God help anybody that tries to break into my house, because I'll admit I'll probably enjoy shooting them too. I don't doubt that there's been plenty of situations where they have saved people that are carrying them. Somebody's carrying a gun and they're able to do something, defend themselves, save their lives. So I will never tell someone, I'll never just say nobody should be able to carry guns. Those words are not coming to my mouth. That's not what this rant's about. I just know that once people get into conflict, they get stupid. And being stupid is the worst thing you can be while holding a gun.
Very true. Yes.
I hate conflict. And I go out of my way to avoid it. I can't stand it. I will walk away. I will apologize or whatever. I just rather not deal with it. But even with me trying to avoid conflict, I know there are times where in my life that I was pissed off enough that I'm glad that there wasn't a gun, sharp object, or a rock within reach.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Fucking cyclists using a whole lane of traffic during rush hour. I mean, why are you riding your bike in the street at 7:45 in the morning when people are trying to hurry to work? I hate them. Anyway.
Yeah, Dallas, Fort Worth is not made for bike traffic.
Well, I mean, we're getting more places with bike lanes, and technically they are a vehicle and they are supposed to ride on the road. It's just a terrible fucking idea. I mean,
why? How would they want to?
We're kind of known for crazy driving, a little bit of aggressive driving. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that here.
No, bunch of big
I don't
ass
even.
trucks.
I have no desire to drive a motorcycle, and part of it's because I grew up here. I mean, they're getting knocked around by like ping pong balls down
Yeah,
here.
the trucks are just getting bigger.
Uh huh. Unfortunately, there are some people that love conflict, and they seem to thrive on anger. Uh, they these kind of people bother me the same way that someone that drives like a maniac, but they still have a license and they terrorize the road. So you got these people out there, and they can have a gun. It's up, the law says it, and it is their right. But I will avoid them like the plague. Like if I see somebody just swerving in and out of traffic, I'm like, I'm
I'm
not
going to
gonna.
slow down.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be around that person. Unfortunately, there was a very good example of what I'm talking about in Frisco, Texas. That's where I live, folks. And now we're all over the national news because of a situation like I'm describing here. I'm not going to go through the ins and outs of the Austin Metcalf Carmelo Anthony thing. There's people are very divided on this, and they're like all over each other. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was, there likely would not be a dead kid at a track meet if a knife hadn't been in reach during this altercation.
Yeah, why was it there?
Yeah, people, whenever they have something within reach that can hurt somebody and they get stupid, sometimes people get hurt and get killed.
Yep. You see red.
I mean, this also furthers the example, though. The fact that it was a knife is that guns are not the problem, it's people. And I have no idea how to fix people. If you take away their guns, they're going to use cars. If you take away the cars, they're going to use knives. If you take away the knives, they'll use a sharpened toothbrush.
No, you find something.
Well, they'll use a sharpened toothbrush because you don't have access to any of those other things, and that's what they do in prison.
Yep. They'll find a way.
Some people either want to hurt people or just don't care if they hurt people or not. And that's always going to be the case. They will find a way to do it. This is just one of those rants that doesn't have a way to solve what I'm ranting about or anything. I'm just complaining. If you have a bad temper, don't carry guns, knives, or shivs.
Makes
That's
sense.
my advice. That's all. It's
Makes
just all
sense.
this stuff going on. It's just like, you just. That's one of the things that always bothers me is especially whenever I know somebody that's got like a kind of an attitude issue and they're like, oh yeah, I got my concealed handgun license. I'm like, oh fuck.
What do you think of? What do you think about the people's defenses when they say they have temporary insanity when they go blind with rage and then they do something and they claim insanity?
temporary insanity? That defense was born in Texas. I will
Why
not go
not?
into detail on that right now because it is an amazing story, and it turned out that my uncle lived in the area where that happened when it happened. So, what I think about it, I stand the same way I stand with regular crazy people. You hurt somebody, you kill somebody, whatever. I don't give a fuck if you're crazy or sane. You don't get to live among normal people anymore, whether that's killing you or locking you up forever. Either way, you don't get to.
Yeah, the end result's still the same.
I don't think it's like, oh well, we treated him so he won't go temporarily insane anymore. Oh fuck you.
Mm. Yeah,
All
no,
right.
I agree with that. I'm just wondering.
All right. Well, speaking of conflicts in Texas that could have been avoided, today we're going to talk about one that I'm surprised that I didn't know about that happened in Texas in the 1800s. And I'm going to assume most of you haven't heard about it either. I'm sure you've heard of the gunfight at the OK Corral, the
Uh,
Hatfields and the McCoys,
uh-huh.
and definitely the Lincoln County War. That last one, for you folks that are saying, I never heard of Lincoln County War, it's the plot of Young Guns. It's what made Billy the Kid famous. And you're like,
Okay.
oh, okay, I know what that is.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But it's very likely that you've never heard about Texas's San Elizario Salt War.
Nope.
Nope.
Say salt.
Salt.
All right.
Yep. The Salt Flats near El Paso were formed after a prehistoric shallow lake collected salt and other minerals over millions of years until the last ice age, about 10,000 years ago, kicked off and the lake ended up drying up. It went away and it just left all these salt deposits. So you got all these salty lands out near El Paso. These salt flats in the Rio Grande Valley near El Paso were an important resource for people throughout the centuries. The Apache and Tigua tribes would collect salt there for food preservation, seasoning, of course, and also for tanning animal hides. Once the Spanish got to that area in 1600s, they were guided to the salt flats by an Apache that they caught. And after bringing some of the salt back to the Spanish royals, they're like, damn, that's some good salt. Here, have some money. We're going to keep putting expeditions out in that area. Go for it. Because the Spanish back then had a shit ton of money.
Uh-huh.
Because of the frequency of expeditions to the area, Spanish colonists ended up settling around that part of West Texas in that El Paso area. Because I know every time I drive through, I'm like, why the fuck are there cities here? There's nothing here. This place is awful. It is the armpit of Texas. Same as the native people, the settlers there depended on collecting salt from the flats. They did it for food preparation and preservation. And now it was also an important trade item because you could trade salt to get whatever European products. And on top of that, like for smelting silver, that salt was a key element that was needed for it.
Wow.
Yeah. Under Spanish law, so Spain was in charge of Texas at the time. For you folks that don't know, the Six Flags theme park are called that because the first one was in Texas. It was Six Flags Over Texas because we've had 6 different countries rule over this land.
Yes, we have.
The first being the Spanish. And the Spanish wanted that land with the salt on there. They wanted it for everyone, so they declared it common land that no one could own. You couldn't build your house there, say, look, I am the owner of all the salt. Spain was like, can't do that. It was an essential resource, and the Spanish crown did not want their subjects fighting each other over it. Now, eventually, Spain was not in charge of that area anymore. Back in the 1800s, Mexico gained its independence from Spain. But the one thing that they did not change, other than changing everybody from Spaniards to Mexicans, is the classification of the salt flats. In Mexican law, they grandfathered in the Spanish law. They were like, that is common land.
Yeah, no touchy.
Well, you could go do it. It was just everybody's. Everyone could go there and gather salt. And they understood that they did not need the act of gathering salt to be even more dangerous. Remember, the Tigua and Apache also used those salt flats.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Mexican citizens, at a minimum, they typically had to go through Apache territory for 2 days to get to those salt flats. So
not easy travels there.
Yeah, I mean, I could just sit there and imagine some guy sitting there begging, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. My wife's food is just so bland and I couldn't take it anymore. She never had salt to anything.
These French fries suck.
So, I mean, people were willing to go through some dangerous shit because, I mean, Apaches were rough Indian. Tiguas, I never really heard much about them. But Comanches and Apaches, but Comanches weren't over there. But the Apaches, they could fuck shit up.
Mm-hmm. The reason why they named a helicopter in the military after it.
Damn right. So, 1836 rolls around, and Texas decides that they don't want or need to be part of Mexico anymore. Show them middle finger and say, we're gaining our independence.
That's right. See you later.
Being that so many of our listeners are not from Texas, I know you probably don't know much about the Texas Revolution, and I'm sorry about that. Just know it was more than just the Battle of the Alamo.
You mean they don't teach
That
Texas
was
history in other states?
no, they don't. I was actually about to go off on that a little bit. Just so you know, the Battle of Alamo is one that Texas lost. Anyway,
But it's not
I have
remembered because of the win.
yeah, I have no plans on doing an episode on the Battle of the Alamo because that is common knowledge for us because we in Texas learn all about this in 7th grade because Texas history is a required course.
Yep, and it's a rite of passage. You have to go to San Antonio and visit the Alamo. You have to go. You have to.
But nobody ever goes to Goliad, which also had a massacre, but go figure.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's not a river walk in Goliad there, Daryl.
it's true. I asked my wife if she had to take California history when she was growing up. And she said, no, that's weird. No, of course not. We didn't have that, which I was a little bit surprised because California, like Texas, was its own country. Only they were only their own country for like 10 days.
They fucked that up too.
Then it dawned on me that I don't know if any other state has as interesting of a history as Texas does. I mean, I imagine anything in New England,
They all clumped together.
like Massachusetts and New York and all that. Yeah, it's just going to be like all American Revolution shit. It's just, here's New England history or something. But that's still the same stuff. They're going to be teaching everybody else about the American Revolution. So nothing unique there. And then I think of a state like Idaho. And they're probably like, yeah, some people built some houses here once and we became a state.
Yeah. And it's a weird shape to that state. What's
Yeah.
it do with that little handle on top?
You can't say nothing. We got a panhandle too.
It's all weird. Our panhandle is a little bigger, but theirs is like real skinny and long.
I liked Idaho. I've been there once.
They make great potatoes.
I asked my niece and nephew that live in Minnesota if they took Minnesota history. And to my surprise, they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It sounded, whenever I was asking about what was like, it sounded like they focused mainly on like Native American stuff. So a lot of the tribal history before colonization and, manifest destiny and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they focus on like fur trade and establishment of the state and stuff because they did have a long time where like you had fur trappers, Indians, and Canadians all running around there. So I was like, okay, it's not as cool as ours, obviously, but I get it. So, all right. Well, for those of you who don't know anything about the Texas Revolution, go read up on it. It's pretty interesting. It's how we became a country. But now back to the story. Texas gains its independence and becomes a country. After the war, Texas is spending a lot of time arguing with Mexico about the border. Because the cool thing in the Texas Revolution is that final decisive battle, the Battle of San Jacinto, the Texas Army caught the ruler of Mexico, Santa Anna, because he was leading the army himself. They captured him. And so it was pretty easy to get him to sign a treaty. And that treaty recognized Texas as a nation. And once they let him go, it was like, all right, cool. We're good now. He's like, fuck you. You're not a country. And they're like, yeah, we are. And he's like, and even if you were, the Rio Grande isn't the border. And so they were spending a lot of time arguing back and forth about this. After, 10 years of being a country and dealing with that crap, Texas becomes a state in the United States. The Mexicans that then became Texans, because there were some American colonists over there that, there were some American colonists that colonized Texas, and some of them were out in that direction. But a lot of the people out there were Mexican. But once Texas got independence, they were just Texans, just like everybody else that lived there. Nobody was Mexican anymore because even the colonists, whenever they colonized Texas, they did it while Mexico was in charge. Technically, they became Mexicans. And a lot of people, unfortunately, whenever you look back at old Texas history stuff, it's like white guy this, white guy that. But it was really, there were a lot of Hispanic and Mexicans involved in that revolution. So
Makes sense.
all those new Texans were now new Americans. And you have this argument between Texas and Mexico about the border. Once Texas becomes a state, that becomes an argument between the U.S. and Mexico that develops into the Mexican-American War. And I know I'm talking about all sorts of stuff that's not a salt war. I'll get back to it. So after 2 years of war, America wins. Mexico and the U.S. signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and boom, the border is established. That it's the Rio Grande, the deepest part of the channel is always going to be the border. That's it. So sometimes the river splits up. Whichever one's deeper, that's the border. Borders established. Manifest destiny is a go. Everybody head out west. Now, you remember those laws that I talked about earlier that declared Salt Flats common lands. Well, America ain't about that life.
Gimme.
That was before. That was even before like communism was a thing. So they wouldn't like, no, that's communist. They're just like, oh hell no, I can make money off that shit. Well, immediately they couldn't just immediately start doing that because, of course, we had the American Civil War. But after that, 3 men attempted to file a title on those salt flats, along with the mineral rights for the salt deposits. W. Mills, Albert J. Fountain, and Louis Curtis wanted to begin charging salt collection fees. The locals obviously are not cool with this.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we've been taking that salt forever.
And it's not just the Americans that live on the American side of the border or the Hispanic ones. I mean, when I say Americans, I mean both. But Mexico, the people that lived across the Rio Grande still came across to collect salt from there. And they would come as far as Chihuahua because that's where a lot of their silver mines were. So they would smelt it there, and they would still go all the way to El Paso and back to bring back that salt. So there were a lot of people that were getting pissed off. I mean, there was at some point, and I don't really go over it too much in this, but there was some point that there was some political issues between Mexican politicians and American politicians where we teetered on another war just over these damn salt flats.
Man.
Now this is where, and as in lots of stories, where all of a sudden, anytime it's like something that ends in like bloodshed, people getting shot up, it has to be soap opera-ish first.
Of course.
It has to be all dramatic and everything.
It's got to be a good story.
So that's where this part comes in, and it's going to be a little bit convoluted, and I tried my best to simplify it because I did not want to throw 800 names at you. Instead, I'm going to probably throw about 10 names at you. But there are a lot of people involved in this. I'm trying to keep it to the main players, but it gets a little kooky.
Okay.
So W. Mills files a claim for the land and forms a group called the Salt Ring that included the guys that I named earlier, as well as a few others. So on behalf of the Salt Ring, he files a claim to the land. The claim to the land was rejected by an El Paso court because the El Paso court was like, this is a terrible idea. I'm not signing off on it. I'm guessing that there were some hard feelings about how this was turning out and how it was being handled because inside the Salt Ring, so there's a few members that start feuding. One of them kills the other, and it kills one of the other. These are all the unnamed guys. One unnamed guy kills another unnamed guy, and then that causes a big divide in that Salt Ring. So that Fountain guy that was originally part of the Salt Ring says, screw this, screw Mills and Cardis. I'm going to now start an anti-Salt Ring. Salty motherfucker. Fountain, Mr. Anti-Salt Ring, then runs for state senate, gets elected, and begins taking steps to secure the title for the people in the El Paso area, basically making it common land again. So he's like, fuck all you guys. You want to go make money on this. I hate you now. And I would rather none of us make money. I'd
Yeah.
rather just take away that opportunity altogether. It wasn't like he's doing it out of the kindness of his heart. He's like, oh, I see the error of my
No.
ways.
It's like
And
taking your ball and going home.
and you're going to see people flip flop like this throughout because it's like wrestling. I'm a good guy. I'm a bad guy. I'm a good guy. I'm a bad guy. So Mills and Cardis start taking steps to hurry up and get another title claim in, but start trying to get involved into the political aspect too to put a stop to Fountain. And they bring a new guy into their group by the name of Charles Howard, who was a lawyer from Missouri. Now, the reason I've been going over all this drama before is specifically this man, Charles Howard, and explaining how he got involved. Cardis takes this lawyer, brings him down to El Paso, gets him elected as a judge. Puts all this money behind him, gets him elected as a district judge in that El Paso area. Because that way he can, file that claim. Circumvent that whole Senate thing, be good. Howard was like, dude, thanks for getting me elected. I'm going to file the claim on the Salt Flats for myself.
No switcheroo. Yeah.
The fucking lawyers.
God, that's like a soap opera. You're right.
Well, this manages to piss off everyone. It pisses off the salt ring. It pisses off the anti-salt ring. It pisses off the people that live in that area. And it pisses off all the Mexicans that still come across the border to go get some salt.
Okay, I got a question. What is their basis for their claim? Like,
well, back then you could just grab some land.
Squatters' rights, basically. Like, I'm here, it's mine now.
Kinda. I mean, that's what frontier life was like back then.
Kind of like when they did in Oklahoma.
I settled this land. This is mine. I'm laying claim to it. And being that it also had like minerals on there, I think that also, being able to file the mineral rights. So, but yeah, that's how things work. You can't really do that now because pretty much everything's, if we don't own, if people don't own it, the government does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what government had to do to Alaska, which, I just got back from, which it did feel like a frontier there. That's one of the craziest things I could say about it. And I don't know if it makes sense, but you get in these towns where it feels like not just isolated, but like it's just people cramming in there, hurrying up, making this town kind of like how they did in those frontier days. Mm-hmm. Where you go,
nothing's permanent.
Just built something, but
or not semi-permanent.
There are things that are permanent, but you can't necessarily access it. So, like Juneau, Alaska, it's the capital of Alaska, but you can only get there by plane or by boat. There are no roads getting there. You can't drive there.
That's weird. I didn't know that. Why the hell would they make that the capital?
I forget. There were reasons. I know, because at the time it was the largest city. Whenever they did that was before Anchorage boomed, but it was still very frontierish, and so that the federal government owns a shit ton of Alaska. They declared a lot of it federal lands. Some of it's for conservation reasons, some of it's oil reasons. We got to keep it free. Freedom in oil.
Wow. Wow, there's a reason there's a lot of reality shows that are starting to take place there. Survival type shows.
It's the only place you can really do that. All right, so Howard fucked over everyone. Everyone hates Howard.
Great move, by the way.
So all the guys from before, Cardis, Mills, are now kind of with Fountain, and they are all against titling the land. It is a bunch of spoiled brats. They're like, fuck you. It is not right to put a title on that land and make people pay salt collection fees, which was their plan. They just don't want somebody else doing it.
Yeah. Only if I was doing it.
But since now they got these guys that have money on their side, citizens are like, hell yeah. And they're like backing these guys up and they're like, yeah.
Just like in wrestling. They forget all about the bad stuff they did and start cheering for you as soon as you do something good.
Pretty much. Oh, I missed out something I wanted to say here. Fucking rich people. Anyways. All right. Now, in September of 1877, Howard, using that district judge title of his, arrested 2 citizens from the town of San Elizario as they were attempting to gather salt because they didn't pay them. The people of San Elizario were not pleased and began to riot and managed to capture Howard and held him prisoner along because they captured him. They took him to a judge and they're like, we want this guy in jail, put charges on him. Judge said no. They're like, okay. They captured that judge, took him to another judge, said, arrest this guy. He said no. So they captured that judge.
Are you sure?
And then the sheriff in that area was like, you can't do that. They captured him. So,
catch a clue, people. They're lining them up.
So they arrest
that's great.
4 people, citizens arrest, and they essentially hold them hostage. And until like a couple of the other, the judges and the sheriff in there are like, we will pay a $12,000 bail if you let him out. So here's some money. And he'll give up his claim to the salt flats and he'll just leave this country. He'll move on. He'll go somewhere else.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah. And he was like, yes, I will do that. I promise. And then after a week of probably sitting there punching his leg and shouting to an empty room, how I'll show them, Howard went back on his promise and returned to El Paso County. A lawyer broke his promise. Pardon me. Well, I'm surprised. I mean, I can see why they didn't see it coming. I mean, seriously, didn't people understand lawyers lied back then?
Golly.
Well, one person I know he's surprised for sure was his former business associate, Louis Cardis. While he sat on a rocking chair on the porch of the El Paso Mercantile store, just chilling out, rocking in a rocking chair like people did back then, Howard approached Cardis, whom he blamed for rallying everyone against him, and blasted him in the chest and stomach with a shotgun.
Jeez.
Cardis was killed instantly.
That would do it.
Yep. And then our brave hero Howard here fled again to New Mexico. He's like, hate shoot and run. I'm out. Last time I was here, you guys really wanted to hurt me. So he took off.
This guy's a piece of work.
Yeah. While there, he caught word that there were a couple of wagon trains heading from Mexico to the salt flats to gather salt. How did he find this out? I have no idea. They didn't have Facebook. They weren't taking selfies while on the wagon train saying, feeling salty. I guess since they didn't have TV or internet back then, people entertained themselves by spilling tea and then watching the drama unfold after they told on them. It's like, oh, I hear there's a wagon train coming. And they're like, oh, God, this is going to piss him off really good. Well, it did piss Howard off. And Howard's response was to send a telegram to the governor of Texas saying, there's a Mexican invasion coming.
Oh, my God.
2 wagon trains worth. The governor of Texas.
There was a joke there that I kept out.
All right, good. Do that. The governor's response was to send Major John B. Jones of the Texas Rangers to El Paso. Once he got there, John Jones spoke with the people of San Elizario. They were pissed that the government was trying to interfere and get into their salt stuff. And essentially they just wanted Howard's head. At that point, the people of the town, they even took out the county government. Remember those people that were like, that were arrested? They just basically booted all of them out, took those seats. They're just like, nope, you're not in charge anymore. We did a quick election. Click, click,
Yeah, there's been a recount.
Yeah. The atmosphere in San Elizario was still volatile, and Major Jones was not going to take any chances. He recruited 20 new Texas Rangers from that area, not necessarily just San Elizario, but that whole valley area. That was composed of Indian fighters, Civil War veterans, a former lawman, a former outlaw, a couple of Tejanos, a couple of white folks from the area. Nice, good little mix, but the problem is none of them have really worked together before, and none of them been Texas Rangers, law enforcement. They were always soldiers, except for that one guy. So
It's like a Magnificent
it's a
Seven.
bit of a kinda, but not magnificent. I'll get to that. He then put them under his lieutenant, John B. Tays, said, I trust you. You got this. And then he left. Jones is like, you got this. I'm out of here. These people are pissed. Howard, once again, cooling his heels in New Mexico as he waited for his murder trial. Oh, wait, did I skip that part? Oh, I left a part out. I know I wrote it. All right. While that Major Jones was there, I accidentally skipped it. He calmed them down enough to get them to abide by the law.
Mm-hmm.
He got Howard back into town to have him arraigned for murder. Then he posted bail. Then he went back to New Mexico. So he had everybody chilled out, saying, hey, we're going to do this by the law. I know he shot somebody, but we're going to do this the right way. Then he recruited the 20 Rangers, left his assistant in charge, and got the fuck out. All right. So Howard was cooling his heels in New Mexico as he waited for his murder trial in March of 1878. However, in December of 1877, Howard once again caught wind of 2 more Mexican wagon trains heading to the Salt Flats to gather the salt he worked so hard to swindle people for. Howard took off for San Elizario again. This time, he got Lieutenant Tays and his 20 newly recruited Rangers to help him arrest the people that were about to rob him. As Howard and the Rangers entered San Elizario, a group of armed men ambushed them. Howard and the Rangers fought back, but they had to take cover because they were essentially getting surrounded, getting shot at. So they all just took off to whatever buildings they could get close to, returning fire. And they tried to get coordinated enough to get in one place. And eventually they were able to, while firing back at these guys, get to where they were inside of a church. So the people that were still kicking were in the church. The information on this skirmish varies from source to source. Did a lot of research on this, and everything I read seemed to say something different. So all I know is that the town had Howard and those Rangers cornered in that church somewhere between 2 and 5 days.
Wow.
Just come on out, bitch. They're like, no, you're going to shoot me. But yeah, none of them could agree on how long they were in there. What they do agree on is for the only time in their history, a Texas Ranger unit surrendered.
Oh.
Eventually, they're getting shot. Everybody's wounded, hurting. They're like, all right, we surrender. Let us out, please. We were just going along with this guy. Upon their surrender, the armed people of San Elizario took Howard and 2 of the Rangers and immediately executed them via firing squad.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it.
They then hacked their bodies to pieces and dumped the parts into a well. Now, for our listeners that aren't from Texas, you might be stunned by this, but this is actually kind of how Mexico handled things back then. Typically, any revolutions they squashed, they would hack up the bodies and scatter them around. If you go to Mexico, I think it's Mexico City, they have monuments built to revolutionaries where they have their actual skulls in there. And Mexican government usually tries to squash that. They don't want people saying, "Oh, here's these great revolutionaries. Let's praise them and kind of look at them and remember them.
Yeah.
They typically try to hack up the pieces and get rid of them. That's what they did with Davy Crockett, William Travis, Jim Bowie, all the people in
Alamo.
Alamo. Nobody knows where their bodies are. There's lots of talk about them getting hacked to pieces, burned, and the bones scattered. That's how they do things. Pancho Villa. Nobody knows where his body is. Mexican government killed him. They made sure to bury him somewhere without telling anybody where, because they did not want people following, saying,
Another
but he died a
uprising,
hero. Yeah. So that's just how they did things. And at the time, that part of Texas was still very Mexican, not in the sense of it, it was Mexican, but I mean, it was just Mexico not that long before. All told, the battle's aftermath racked up 12 people dead, 50 wounded.
Man.
So I don't know how many died on each side. I just know for sure those 3 guys died on Howard's side, including himself.
Yeah, they're not taking any chances for another heel turn, face turn, any of that.
Yeah. Now, it'd be super fun to sit there and entertain and be like, all this over salt? People hated bland food so much they killed for it? But that's not the case. This fight was all over greed. There was never going to be a fight over this until somebody got greedy. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. Now, of course, the state of Texas could not let their big bad law enforcement agency get punked like that. And you can't have a town flipping the bird to the government saying, screw you, we'll do whatever we want. San Elizario lost its position as the county seat of El Paso County. They then just moved it to El Paso. Originally, San Elizario was the large town there. It was a large city.
Mm-hmm.
After that happened, the Army, the federal government, dispatched the 9th Cavalry to reopen Fort Bliss, which was in that area, to keep an eye on San Elizario, Mexico, and Hispanic people in that area. So people at that point are like, I don't really want to be here anymore. Seems things are getting a little tense here. And then on top of that, eventually the railroad was built and it connected to El Paso, because that was now the big town over there instead of San Elizario. And it gave people even more reason to leave that area. Now, I will say that one source did note, and it was only one source that said this, but I still want to point it out, that between the Army and the now increasing white population, there were many Mexican families in that area that were attacked, because of this, because most of the people in that area were brown. Mm-hmm. But now that more of them were white, and they're like, hey, y'all shot a white guy not that long ago and then hacked him in pieces and threw him in a well. Run. But they're like, I'm a Texan. And they're like, you are not in my eyes. You're too brown for that. So, yeah. So let's see. As for the Salt Flats, there was eventually a claim laid on it. So someone eventually did get a claim laid on it. And salt gatherings came with a cost, just like Howard and the Salt Ring were trying to do. But it did not last long. Once that railroad reached El Paso in 1881, so just 4 years, people were able to get cheap salt in shipments from Kansas. So they didn't need to gather their own salt anymore. So just the 4 years after the fight, the thing that they were fighting for was now officially pointless. The greedy bastards lost because their claim was now worthless. It's just salty land now that people didn't need.
Yeah.
Many of the citizens, the Hispanic ones, they had to leave their homes and go to Mexico to avoid persecution because, like I said earlier, they shouldered a lot of the blame. People like an easy target. Why talk to people and say, hey, were you involved in that incident? Whenever you could just color code them and say, hey, all those brown folks were involved in that incident.
Wasn't the first time the United States did that.
No. It would take too much time if they were sitting there saying, "Hey, white guy, were you involved?" And him be like, "Yes," and then, or like, "No, just go for the brown ones with the accent. Go for them."
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Yeah, fuck this, I'm out." And they went to Mexico, where they could potentially live without some idiot putting a bullet in their ass. And that kind of does it for that story. So the next time you go to McDonald's or Whataburger and you're enjoying those salty fries, I want you to think about this episode and think about how many heads you would take if someone was trying to take away the salty goodness of those fries. You know, they're like, "Here, have some bland McDonald's fries." Oh, fuck you. I would take a head.
That's incredible.
I know for sure my mom would. She would turn into Rambo if somebody tried to take her salt from her. That woman salts everything. I think she even salts her toothpaste. I was making fun of her for that on that cruise, the Alaskan cruise, because like before she even tastes anything, she salts and peppers it, and then on top of that, she puts like a ton of pepper. Like everybody, like Denise was having so much fun making fun of my mom over that.
Ashley does the same thing before she even tastes it. She puts salt and pepper all over it. I'm like, how do you know what if it's already salty?
Yeah, I don't get that. Take a chance. Take a taste. I mean, it kind of ends a little sudden, but I mean, I knew that this episode was kind of on the longer side, so I was trying to cut it off. But
it was interesting, though, with all the turns and people like, I want it. Well, if I can't have it, I'm just going to go against you now and get a posse to go against you, and just kept fighting back and forth.
Just petty bullshit that all got out of hand. But I mean, seriously, that Charles Howard guy, total dick. It's like, yes, thank you for getting me elected. Now, fuck all of you. I'll take it for myself. I mean, it's like, ooh. I mean, that he's lucky he didn't catch a bullet in his ass immediately.
Right? Yeah. Man, good story.
All right. Anything else? Any questions, class?
Just know that anytime you hear about land disputes, it always ends in some sort of murder.
Jason knows. He works in claims, titles, and shit.
Man, land disputes.
This is the first time that I felt like my history degree kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah, you were flying through that stuff.
All right, well, I'm going to end this before, I end up saying things I don't need to, like I did about my mom. Might piss her off, but it's not like she listens anyway, so who cares? Join us next time when Jason, if he isn't too busy rallying a posse to take down Raising Cane's for charging extra for extra cane sauce.
Oh, they better not.
They do.
Well, they better not if I have to get an extra piece of garlic toast. Man, that stuff's good.
If Jason survives the warrior with Raising Cane's, he'll tell us some stuff that'll make us say, "Waywut, that bread is the best." Me and Violet will go to town on that.
Yeah, no coleslaw, double bread, please.
She does a every time she eats that, she does a happy dance, a yummy dance whenever she eats it.
So the chicken sometimes is.
I don't give a shit about their chicken. I'd eat a loaf of that bread.
It never disappoints. It's always good. It's so good.
All right. Well, I'm hungry now, so bye.
Later.
Thank you for joining us for Waywut. If you would, tell your friends or your enemies that they can watch us on YouTube or Rumble. And if you don't want to see our face, or if they don't want to see our faces, you can listen to us on your preferred audio platform. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, you name it, we're probably on there. Please like, review, and comment on whatever platform you joined us on today. We'd appreciate that a ton. Again, just thank you for listening and watching. We hope you'll join us next time. We'll make you say, "Wait, what?"